could write a whole book about my sister, as you can see. Apologies, I'm going to silence this. I'm going to record it because I want to remember what I say. I know it's being live streamed. In many, many ways, I feel like I was born with an unfair advantage in life. And, you know, it's because I was the fourth of 4 children and obviously raised by parents, adults, but in many ways I was raised by my brothers and my sister. And so being the fourth of 4, getting to kind of see, my name's Michael, by the way, Mike, Mikey, Michael Motorcycle, however you like to, I will get into that later. I just thank you to St. Mary's for allowing me to speak. I appreciate that so much. A lot of blessings from this church. So what do I mean by an unfair advantage? So I was able to be born, you know, my brother's in the congregation. And, you know, you don't choose to be firstborn, and he's really been the rock of our sibling unit. And I've learned so much from him. He's so solid. And I learned competitiveness and just how to be there for people. And I'm going to talk a lot about what I learned from my sister. So yeah, my sister was born 6 years before me, and brothers 11 and 10 years older than me. One passed away. And so really what I want to say, Laura's heart for the disenfranchised reminds me of Jesus. I didn't put it in my notes. I studied up on, I wanted to make sure I was respectful. I was raised in the Catholic Church, confirmed. You know, sometimes we become, you know, follow a spiritual path, always following Jesus. I might be a Protestant right now, but I always value you know, each church's, you know, their traditions. And the internet is way more serious, so I was told I could say a lot of things. And so my sister, what I mean by disenfranchised and her care for anyone, just for example, I learned later in life that her very, very favorite artist was Lady Gaga. She just really, you know, never wanted to leave anybody out. And, you know, as long as you're not hurting anybody, you're welcome. And she cared about people all the way down to the cats and dogs in the remainder of her life, caring for the disenfranchised, for the downtrodden. It reminds me of Jesus, and I think that's a wonderful thing. And that's what a Catholic eulogy is really supposed to be about, celebrating her, but also her faith specifically. So I would like to talk about her heart, her words, and her faith. And even brought a little marker so I could check these off. I don't want to forget anything. So yeah, being the little brother, it just really, the words that I come across in my life, it occurred to me this past week as I was preparing for celebrating my sister's life. It was just shocking how much the words of my life, my vocabulary, have been influenced by her. I think I may have skipped something. I apologize. So yeah, basically, for example, I was told that when I was brought home from the hospital, and they told my big sister that she had a baby brother, that she turned cartwheels. And that just stuck with me. The word cartwheel, we all have a word, you know, it might mean an actual cart, you know, wheel on a cart. Of course, we're talking about, you know, turning backflips, basically. And I've probably said the word cartwheel 1,000 times, maybe I've heard it 10,000 times, but pretty much every time I have a little movie in my head of my big sister turning cartwheels when she was 6 years old. I was 0 days old, so I don't remember it, so I created the movie in my head. But I just, the nostalgia and just I just thank so much for her love for others, and that her actions of turning cartwheels turn into words that I remember and I value. You know, words so much, and becoming an English major, I feel like it just needed to be said. And my favorite Bible verse was mentioned earlier, the Gospel of John. So the Apostle John 1:1, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. And these are one of the things that I talk about as When we're being called in the Great Commission to do evangelism, to talk about Jesus, we can talk about other reasons for specifics of the faith, but ultimately it's the Holy Spirit that comes to somebody, and we can be there, and it's a privilege to be there. But that verse has always stuck with me. I just don't believe it was written by man. I believe it's inspired by God, and just maybe think about millions and millions of things. You got 10 minutes, you have to bring it down. So I wanted to focus on certain words, and it just struck me like that. And I want to talk about the word Catholicism. And so for me, I have to take a drink of water. So I have memories. I'm growing up here in Jackson. I was a pretty good student trying to learn things, and I was watching like I said, it's an unfair advantage. I got to kind of see Laura, a little bit older brothers and sisters, see what they're doing, and then, love parents and everything. But to me as a kid, it was almost like this sequential thing on how to live. I got to see people living out before me, and it was a great honor to do that. And no disrespect to parents, obviously, love our parents. But that word Catholicism, I really just honed in on it. I was probably 7, 8, 9 years old, and she was working, my sister Laura was working diligently at the dining room table here on Chickering Road. And I said, "What are you working on?" And she said she was doing a high school paper on Catholicism. I just can see her face saying that. It was very, very important to her, and that was not lost on me. And ultimately, I just can't think this is a coincidence. Her reverence for the church, and being in high school, I thought that was a pretty serious thing to choose to write about. And ultimately, I became what I would call a born-again Christian at a retreat called Search in Memphis, Tennessee. I just think there's a connection through our lives. And Nora, we thank you. I thank you. It's just funny to me that a dining room table could become a sacred place. And ultimately, maybe I wasn't consciously thinking about it, but it's not published. But I wrote the story of my life, and she's in it, Billy's in it, Jill's in it, everybody's. I sat down at the dining room table in the quiet of the night, and it just felt sacred. And I just thank Laura for that. I think about some of the other words, young and life. So the first time I ever heard the words young and life together, Young Life is a high school ministry. It might not be Catholic specifically. It's just about Jesus. You go, you have fun. Some guy in college learned how to play 3 chords on a guitar, and you can play 1,000 songs with that. And she was just so excited. And she was like, "Michael, you're going to love Young Life. You're going to love it." And I did. And then I loved it so much that I became a Young Life leader in Knoxville, Tennessee. I don't think that's a coincidence. You can still draw that line back to the things that you learn from people that you love and respect. And, maybe I would have met Jill, Suzanne, Joseph. But she was a Young Life leader at Farragut, and I was at Bearden. And we got married. We had 3 kids, and we have 2 grandchildren that are here. And I just think there are ripples that come out from our life. And in the moments, and you don't know how, but you just keep following Jesus, and I just can't thank you enough. I think about how we used to watch Zoom on public television, and I was excited about that because of her. You see your big sibling getting, "Oh, Michael, let's go watch Zoom." There were no VCRs back then. You had to watch it then, and they had this thing called Ubby Dubby Talk. And I know this is kind of silly, but it's like she just made a cow appear out of nothing. I had no idea how she could basically learn the Ubby Dubby Talk. And for an example, Thibis Ibis Ebi Kabalipithibic Churbich, and so I was just like, how do you do that, And so I don't think I really learned how until I was in college. I was just figured it out or something. But that silliness, it's funny how quickly time goes by. I remember just having a love of making up silly words. She would call me Michael Motorcycle, and I would call her Laura from Cadora. And it does make me a little sad, but also a little bit happy. I don't know when the last time I said Cadora was. I don't know what that means. I looked it up. I think it's just something that we said. And then as we started to raise our own children, maybe subconsciously, I would say things like Emma Carolina. She took a trip to China, and she's in the audience. And it's just one of these things that, our loved ones affect us in big ways and small ways. And I think about Eden is back there behind the glass, I think, grandchild, and we made up a game called Kafloof, where I throw a blanket out on the bed, and so she learned a word. And I think these are just the words that bind us, and it brings me back to, John 1:1. I mean, how divine is it that the word is in there, as imperfect as a word is, and that the actual communication of God to us is through a person, through God himself. I just think it's amazing, and I just had to talk about it. And get a little bit closer to the close, so to speak. So there's a poem by Rainer Maria Rilke. I wrote it down. I think I have it memorized, but I'll just say it. It just made me think about this, how it's in a larger work by this German poet, a powerful force in the 1800s and 1900s, and I live my life in widening orbits as you get a little bit bigger and a little bit bigger. And so I am circling around God, around the ancient tower, and I have been circling for 1,000 years. And I still don't know if I am a falcon or a storm or a great song. I just think that's beautiful. And it made me think of how much she loved Chad and how proud she was of Chad and what a great writer Chad is. And I just wanted to share that, how proud she was of you, Chad. And so, yeah, so we opened with the Apostle John. We had a little Rainer Maria Rilke. Now you're stuck with me at the end, and I'm going to come back to where I was at the beginning. What is the impact of Laura's faith? Her heart for the disenfranchised reminds me of Jesus. Her heart for the disenfranchised reminds me of Jesus. And I hate to, maybe I don't hate to, but her getting me into Young Life and having a balance of incredible reverence, but also a little bit of silliness, is I think how God made us, and getting into Young Life and learning to do skits. I'm sure that affected my desire to do, funny videos at work. And my friend Charlie Slides showed up, and I thank you, friend. I appreciate the advice that I could actually be a little bit more open. And so whenever I think of the Partridge Family, I think of Laura. It was just right there. And something always happens whenever we're together. We get a happy feeling when we're singing a song. We love you, Laura.